So this movie, The Discovery, was recommended to me by a sub, and I don't remember. I don't think I remember. Maybe I remember. Hold on. Nope, don't remember. But thank you for whoever recommended the movie. I just finished it. And it was good. It turned out better. It was getting kind of dark there in the middle, and it seemed like it was going to go the same path as all of the other dystopian technology run amok horror future society films, but it righted itself at the end in a way. One of the things I didn't really understand about the film was, and spoiler alert if you haven't watched it, my memory isn't great, so I can't spoil the whole thing for you, but I can spoil some of the juicy parts. So if you haven't watched it and you don't want to know anything about it, turn this off. But one of the parts I didn't understand why, and I don't remember names, just Isla and Will. I don't remember the dad's name. But the dad, the guy who invented this machine, the guy who came up with this theory of the afterlife, when he did this, then it prompted worldwide suicides, and millions of people were offing themselves to relocate to the afterworld, to the afterlife. And I didn't get that part. Because even if you leave religion stuff out of the picture, you still don't know. You don't know while you're here what's going to happen. You may have theories. There may be NDE experiences, near-death experiences. But still, at the same time, you don't really know. So I don't understand why somebody coming up with what may sound like a really good theory, and maybe he even has some sort of scientific proof, if there is such a thing. He still, even in the movie, he didn't say that the afterlife would be anything too different than this one. Not necessarily better, not necessarily worse. Could be a lot better, could be a lot worse. So he didn't really say anything about it, honestly, aside from maybe quell some of the people's fears about eternal torture. But even so, even if you remove the fear of eternal torture from yourself, it still doesn't make sense to leave this place unless you were already suicidal. Because if you don't know, then I don't see what the point is. Other than that, I thought it was a good movie. I like how it didn't get caught up in the whole time travel debacle and all of the theoretical problems that arise from that. And I'm also glad that the machine that he invented wasn't billed as some AI god or some overarching basis for whatever reality they were in, like is running around in certain circles in this particular realm. Not saying that I'm for or against that concept, but it's unsettling to say the least to imagine that you're either one, trapped inside of some sort of machine, or two, you're simply a program inside of a consciousness enhanced program within a simulation. Both of those are unsettling, and to me they are still belief systems. Even those, everything is a belief system, and the reality itself is malleable, and I'm sure that what comes after your life here is malleable as well, and is dependent on what sort of belief structures you hold. Your mind holds when you die, if you die. So if you are a devout Christian, if you have a strongly held belief that you're going to end up in hell, maybe you will end up in some form of hell, as per your musings, or fears rather. And if you're a devout Christian that has lived a life that they really feel is beneficial in following Jesus and following the Bible to the best of their understanding, and they feel like they're going to go to heaven, then I'm sure that because of that belief, they could certainly end up in heaven, in their version of heaven. And I know that it's a sticking point with people who hold religious beliefs, and especially when I say something like that, I know that they would have an issue with that, because they believe in an external God that does what he does, and the rule set is clear and defined, and we as humans are simply have choice A and choice B, and we just have to follow the rules and hope that we're doing it good enough. I understand that point of view. I don't hold it myself, but I understand it. To me, holding that type of view is another thing that's going to get you to that place that you're imagining. I always feel, though, that with all of these stories that talk about people having regrets and people feeling guilty about a certain action that led to maybe somebody dying, maybe somebody losing all their possessions, maybe somebody getting ostracized from their family or from some group that they were close with. I understand the idea that you want to somehow remedy that, and that some things in this realm, like death, we don't see people remedying those here. The person dies and we don't see them again. So I understand that, but I don't feel that. I feel that at a certain point you have to wake up to the reality, which to me is just one reality. It's not. The mind can always expand to include every new bit of information. So if all of a sudden the reality is now we are inside of a simulation and the real reality is outside, okay, mind expands to include both of those. No matter what new piece of information comes in, your mind always expands to include it. If you're not still in the mode of segmenting the reality into this, that, and the other thing, and this place versus that place, and this thing versus this thing, all that duality stuff. If you've moved away from that, then you just see that everything is just what it is. It's all, you could say it's all one, you could say it's a multifaceted one, you could say it's a multidimensional one. You could say there are alternative timelines and parallel versions of yourself and NPCs and true selves, and you can theorize forever. There's nothing stopping you from doing that, and your mind is always big enough to encompass the whole thing. Even if, there are wackadoodle theories out there, your mind still encompasses that. It just says that is bad theory. It's still there in your mind. It's not somewhere else. But I very strongly feel that no matter where you are, and no matter what you call it, whether you call it a flat earth or a round earth, or whether you call it the realm, or whether you call it life itself, whether you call it version number 6637 out of 10 million, it doesn't matter what you call it. You look down and you see, you're some sort of a thing, you gotta do something with it. And even if you don't like the sort of thing that you are and you want to take an early exit, unless you fade off into nothingness, then you're going to be in some other form and you're going to be dealing with that. So my basic take is that if you haven't done everything that you feel you need to do in whatever form and realm you appear in, or if you haven't done everything you wanted to do, if you haven't at least tried, then there's literally no point in wanting to leave, unless you're, like I said, terribly depressed and anxious and worried about everything. Maybe you've had the most rough life imaginable and it's just all pain. Then I could understand the desire to leave, and even suicide. People commit suicide for a reason. It's not just because they were sissies or whatever. At a certain point, pain becomes too much and you can't handle it anymore. For some people, in some experiences. But if you're not at that point, then you're here. Look at your hands, look at your body. You have this thing, this amazing vehicle. You can't argue that it's amazing. We can't understand it. Our science doesn't explain it. Our science doesn't explain mystery. Our science doesn't even explain quantum physics. It doesn't explain. It's like a fairy tale added on top of an actual mystery. That's what science is. And I'm not saying it doesn't have a use and a purpose. It does. And technologies that arise via the scientific method are nice. But even with the technologies that we have, you could argue that they've maybe done more harm than good. Just like in that book, what was it called? Something Down Under. What was that book called? Mutant. In that book I read earlier called Mutant Down Under, which I highly recommend reading if you haven't. These aboriginals that live in the land, with the land, as the land, they are the land. These guys have all of these psychic abilities, these telepathic abilities, these natural self-healing abilities, simply via the mind. And they don't cause a massive ruckus on the planet, and they don't cause all of the people to segregate out into different ideological groups and different labels and different skin colors and all this other nonsense that has all the people doing that. And they are simply one with the land, and they're at the same time aware of these other people, the so-called Westerners that are playing Frankenstein with machines and venturing down that path to see what comes of it. And they're not even judging the Westerners. They're just they even see the Westerners as some kind of strange, yet still in an odd way, natural creature in its environment. But then if you were to take the Westerners' point of view of the Aboriginals, they would be viewed as backwards savages with a negative connotation, and therefore that concept of those people gets erased from even having to be acknowledged within whoever's mind is considering the possibility. It's a safety measure, so you don't have to question your own belief system. So that's about all. If you're you're here and you're alive and you have a body and you haven't done what you wanted to do, if you have issues with somebody, if you have resentments, if you have fears, all this stuff, it can all be worked out right now. You don't have to wait till you're dead. You don't have to come back for another 50 goes to get it right. You just go do whatever you do right now. That's my opinion. Hope everyone's doing well. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.